and welcome back to another episode of Who Died with Pete and Alex. It's your weekly guide to some of the famous, infamous, and noteworthy figures who have gone to the great beyond of the week ending June 27th or so. I'm Pete the Retailer.
I'm Alex Robinson.
And Alex, I understand you have our first honoree this week.
Yes, we want to bid farewell to Robert Gottlieb. Robert Gottlieb passed away at the age of 92. He was a writer and editor. Very big 20th century kind of influencer. He grew up in Manhattan, went to Columbia, and then got a job. He was an editor at Simon & Schuster, editor of The New Yorker for a while, and then was an editor at Knopf, where he oversaw many great novelists of that era. Salman Rushdie, Michael Crichton, Toni Morrison, Ray Bradbury, John le Carré, Larry Vivron, Doris Lessing, and many, many others were. He oversaw their works. And in fact, he contributed to the language. It was him who told Joseph Heller, Catch 18 is not a good title for a book. There's another book with 18 coming out, so maybe change it to something else. And so came out with Catch 22. So thus is immortality achieved. He also oversaw some nonfiction memoirs and biographies. Katharine Hepburn, Paul Simon, Bill Clinton, Barbara Tuchman, and most near and dear to my heart, Robert Caro's monumental LBJ biography, which we're all crossing our fingers that the last volume will come out. Now that Gottlieb is gone, maybe without the editor kind of cracking the whip on him, maybe Caro might start getting lazy, but...
or the opposite. Now it'll just be like a free-for-all, and it'll be like a
he just hands in whatever.
Like all the editing will be, there'll be like typos and misplaced commas.
Like the last two seasons of Game of Thrones when they didn't have George R. Martin's book to go on anymore. In addition, he also wrote a bunch of biographies himself and edited 3 anthologies, Reading Jazz, Reading Lyrics, and Reading Dance. He was the dance critic for the New York Observer for many years. Dance critic. Imagine that. There used to be dance critics in newspapers.
Yeah.
So, farewell to Robert Gottlieb. It seems unlikely that his, like we're leaving the era of books and novels being an important, to that degree, that novels and books were considered important, capital I important, in the mid-20th century. Now seems less common of a thing. Who do you have this week, Pete?
Well,
first.
I'm going to go this week. I want to highlight a pair of actors that have left us this week. I'm going to start with June 23rd. We lost Frederic Forrest Jr. Frederic Forrest was born December 23rd in Waxahachie, Texas. Son of, obviously, Virginia. And Frederic Fenimore Forrest Sr. was a furniture owner whose greenhouses provided plants for sale in retail stores, which sounds like an interesting... Like, you could only have that career in the early 20th century, I feel like.
And his name was Forrester?
Forrest.
That's a weird...
Yeah. Yeah. If your name is Forrest and you have a greenhouse, you got one step above.
Yeah.
So in about 1966, so he's about 30 when he makes his on-stage acting debut, and this is going to be a little bit of a tangent, because he made his on-stage acting debut, as far as I know, in a play, a musical called Viet Rock. Have you heard of Viet Rock?
No, I heard of Cop Rock, but not Viet Rock. Yeah.
Viet Rock, in 66, I think it started in 65 or 66, and it is the proto-Hair, basically. It's a musical, it's widely considered, widely by whom, I don't know. Let me be the Wikipedia editor here. Widely considered to be the first rock musical written and performed in the United States. So it spawned a whole kind of subgenre.
Yeah.
One of the first, if not the first, kind of protest plays about Vietnam to actually, be staged. And also, and again, who said this? I don't know, but one of the first major theater production in the United States in which actors left the stage to interact directly with the audience.
Wow.
So like they left and walked into the crowd, and like all this stuff was incredibly influential. Two of the people I think involved with Viet Rock then went on and made Hair in a little bit, a couple years later, and so that it's basically the proto Hair.
Does Hair also have people going out into the audience?
I think so. I've been too terrified of it to even. Yeah. But it seems like that became a thing. And we have Viet Rock to thank for a lot of those things are kind of, they've become cliche and corny and cheesy, but it's what it was an artistic expression of their feelings at the time, obviously.
I just can't believe
the best way they knew how.
I just can't believe no one did that prior to that. It's one of those things like, how did in 500 years of theater going on and no one ever thought to go out into the audience, and it's astonishing. That's genius, I guess.
Well, I mean, there's also like, depending on the size of the crowd, like if you're like, the theater is built to project the sound towards you.
Yeah.
So if you're out walking around in the crowd, I don't know.
You have stairs that go down so that you don't want people coming up on the stage.
Also, I've said before, I do not like that, and I do not want that to happen. So please don't. He is probably best known for a pair of roles that he played in 1979. He was, speaking of Vietnam, he was J. Chef Hicks in the film Apocalypse Now. Mm-hmm. And also won Golden Globe and Oscar nominations. I don't know if he actually won. I thought he won one of those, but Academy Award and Golden Globe nomination is Best Supporting Actor for a character named Houston Dyer in The Rose, which was the movie based on the life of Janis Joplin, but then the Janis Joplin estate was just like, no. And so they just changed the names to protect the innocent, but it was basically a Janis Joplin movie.
Bette Midler.
With Bette Midler, yeah. As the titular Rose.
Mm-hmm.
And then Coppola liked him after Apocalypse Now and put him in a handful of other things. His Conversation was before that, I guess, so maybe he liked him from The Conversation and put him in other things. Conversation, One from the Heart, Hammett, and Tucker, The Man in His Dream.
Oh, wow, so he was like the Leonardo DiCaprio of Francis Ford Coppola.
Yeah, in a sense. I mean, he was never the lead in any of those things,
but
he was just around. He was like his guy that he put in there.
He was like the Ron Howard's brother. Clint Howard.
Right, Clint Howard, or the Greg Grunberg of his day. He was also Captain Richard Jenko on the first season of 21 Jump Street, and then got replaced for season 2, and then 21 Jump Street became a pop culture phenomenon of sorts after that, so he kind of missed out.
He was clearly the anchor that was holding them down.
Right, yeah. Also, a notable role as Nick, the Nazi surplus store owner in Falling Down. That's a movie that I feel like, I don't know, like society has come full circle around that, where at first it was like, it was too edgy in one direction, and then society has kind of come and gone around it, and now it would be too much like, whoa.
Like it's
like
too progressive.
I don't know. I don't know. I have to go back and watch it maybe, but I feel like at first it was too, I don't know. I feel like at the time the conservatives would have hated it, and now they would love it, in a sense. But maybe I'm wrong. But it's also notable, and just put a pin in this, he was in one episode of Mrs. Columbo.
Oh.
So, this one of those actors that you've seen him in a bunch of things, and just kind of sometimes hard to put a pin on him. That's my metaphor for the day. But hard to kind of like be like, oh yes, it's that guy who I know by name. But it's just like, oh yeah, no, I've seen him in a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
But I think for me, almost if I see him in anything else, it's like, oh, it's the chef.
Yeah.
From Apocalypse Now.
Yeah.
So
not South Park, different chef.
No, different chef. It's a different chef on different jobs. Frederic Fenimore Forrest Jr. he got out of the boat. So, R.I.P. Alex, who is your next honoree this week?
I will continue the theme with another actor, one of those, oh, it's that guy kind of actors, Paxton Whitehead. Paxton Whitehead. English actor, born 17th of October 1937. We lost him on the 16th of June of this year. And Tony Award-winning actor. After working in repertoire for many years, he joined the Royal Shakespeare Company in 1961 and basically had a long career in the theater. Ran the Shaw Festival, dedicated to George Bernard Shaw in Canada. But like a lot of these actors we encounter, having a theater career almost like it's very ephemeral compared to movies and TV, because if you're going to recognize him, it's from movies or TV. I recognize him as the bad guy in Back to School. He mostly played stuffy British guys. And Pete, you might know him as Rachel's boss in Friends.
Oh.
And so he also had a lot of other roles in TV and movies, usually, one or two episode things. He was on The West Wing for a couple of episodes. He must have had a good time at Back to School with Rodney Dangerfield, because a few years later he was in Rover Dangerfield, providing one of the voices for that animated cartoon.
I thought you were going to tell me there was one of those like sequels that nobody knows about for Back to School, like Back to School, and
returned
starring nobody from the first movie except for some of the background actors.
Oh man, I wish. So. Yes, Paxton Whitehead, 60 years in the theater, remembered for being in a Rodney Dangerfield dog movie. Goodbye, funny man.
Oh.
Well, who else do we lose, Pete?
Interesting. There seems to be a theme. We were talking about it's kind of a slow week for death this week, which is good. Yeah. But also, it allows us to shine a light on some of the... I'm not going to say lesser known names, but names that are, we might not know their names, but we've seen their faces. Just like I said with Frederic Forrest, same goes true for Nicholas Coster, who is, I could basically have just read your last entry for this entry, because same thing, British actor who did a lot of stage stuff, born in Britain. Born in the UK, came over, grew up mostly in California, but then played a lot of kind of. Mostly, I think, kind of more, maybe not stuffy, but like kind of authority figures and stuff like that. Born December 3rd, 1933, died June 26th, 2023, age 89. And just similar scope of like, as no matter what he did in theater, I think a lot of people of our generation will be like, oh, it's Blair's father from The Facts of Life. He was on like 5 or 6 episodes of The Facts of Life as David Warner, which is kind of funny because David Warner is another actor who played a lot of things and recognizes.
He was another guy, another job.
Yeah. Blair's father. He was also in a prolific act, just like he had so many roles across so many genres and mostly TV stuff, but also movies and stuff. Like he really covered all the bases in a lot of things. Like he was, primarily, a lot of people might know him as a soap opera actor because he was on 252 episodes of Another World and 599 episodes of Santa Barbara.
Wow. And
also appeared on As the World Turns, One Life to Live, All My Children, like Dallas, like I couldn't find General Hospital, but I feel like every other sitcom, even ones that I haven't heard of because they kind of came and went before I was, alive. Mm-hmm. He did soap opera work on all of these.
Wow.
And there was even he ported characters sometimes from one soap opera to another if they were, I don't know. It seems, I don't understand the world of soap operas very well.
So are they implying they were all in the same? I guess I know some of them were in the same universe, but
yeah, some of them are in the same universe. So apparently it could be that kind of a thing. But he originated a character in one soap opera and then brought it to another one. Also, here's 2 things that you'll appreciate that he was in minor roles, background kind of roles. All the President's Men and 1776.
Oh wow!
So there's some. He was there for the The founding of the nation and its destruction.
Did he play the same character? Was he like a ghost?
He played the spirit of 76.
Oh.
Also, just on, TV stuff, like, covered over the years, so, like, for genre, kind of, sci-fi superhero stuff, he was in, like, Spider-Man, Wonder Woman, Incredible Hulk, Buck Rogers, Star Trek The Next Generation, just kind of, like, one-off, just one role on each of these things, but just over the years, just covered so many bases, all the detective shows, all the sitcoms, like, he was just around. He was in one episode of Police Squad where he played Warner, which is interesting because he was Blair's
typecast
father. So I wonder if we can create a Police Squad Facts of Life operating in the same universe. If was Blair's father maybe in the Police Squad for a little bit.
His name and the character that he was on a soap opera was not named Warner, was it?
I don't think so.
Okay.
That'd be interesting if he was. Also, I said I'd come back to it. He was also on one episode of Mrs. Columbo. So
there weren't that many of that, so that's a unique achievement.
So we should check your guy to see if they were on an episode of Mrs. Columbo.
It's a cursed episode where everyone from that
they're
show,
all in the same episode and everybody died this week.
Watch out, Kate Mulgrew. Well, I'm going to talk about someone from history, if I may. I'm going to focus on Mildred Gallarz. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Mildred, but you are deceased, so probably doesn't matter. She was born the 29th of November, 1900, so we're going a ways back. She was born in Portland, Maine, wanted to become an actress, went to acting school and so on. Never quite made it, tried to go in various theatrical directions. She couldn't get into drama school, which comes into play later on. She moved to Paris, New York City, Algiers, and then while she moved to Dresden and married a German fellow. And then a little bit of trouble broke out in Germany in 1941. The American government said, "Hey, any Americans living in Germany, you better get out now because things are not going well." She had a German fiance, and the German fiance is like, "I'm not going to leave the country." So Mildred decided to stay in Germany during World War II. And she got a job. While she was there, she was teaching English, and then she eventually got a job working in radio as like a radio announcer and newsreader. A job she kept once the Nazis took over. And then eventually, it was in 1941. So as soon as the U.S. declared war on, sort of Germany and the U.S. went to war, she became the hostess of a show called Home Sweet Home. And the purpose of this show was it was broadcast in English, and it was to undermine the spirits of American GIs who might be listening to it. So the name of the show is Home Sweet Home, like it's designed to make these soldiers all nostalgic. She would talk about how unfortunate it is, how their sweethearts are probably all going to be cheating on them while they're gone, and their families miss them, and who knows if by the time they go back they might not, they might be horribly mutilated or not be able to function in society. So this is where she gained the nickname Axis Sally.
Oh.
So because GIs would listen to it because it was music in English, but there was definitely a kind of love-hate relationship between the soldiers and Axis Sally, as one can imagine. The war ended. Eventually,
it did? Oh, good.
Sorry, just found out about it.
I got stuff to do. Hang on.
In 1946, she was tracked down by authorities and put on trial for treason. She was found in 1949, found guilty of only one count of treason. Because I guess she fell back on the defense of, like, I was just reading what they told me to read. And it was really, I was under the sway of this radio producer, etc., etc. So she was only found guilty of one count of treason, sentenced to 10 to 30 years in prison, but was paroled in 1961, so just 12 years into her sentence. And she became a teacher at a convent. And this was...
In Germany?
In America.
Or is this
I don't know. I don't know. I think this was in America. because then she went back to college to get her bachelor's degree in 1973. Imagine these people in 1973, and there's this older lady there, and they're like, "Oh yeah, she was a Nazi propagandist during the war." I'm assuming people did not know that at the time.
Right. Like she hopefully didn't take, history classes. They would like cover that and then be like,
yeah. But she's like, this is like the easiest report I ever wrote on.
Right. Yeah. Or going back to school, that maybe she helped somebody with their paper.
Yes, a la Kurt Vonnegut.
Yeah.
If you're curious to learn more about Axis Sally, Al Pacino was in a movie called American Traitor, Portrait of Axis Sally, which came out in 2021. So,
wow.
Yeah, relatively recent. Definitely in the hoo-ha era of Al Pacino.
Yeah.
I think he plays
the Dunkin' Donuts commercial era of Al Pacino.
I think he plays her defense attorney, and then Al Pacino loves playing attorneys because you get to emote very bigly. And yeah, Axis Sally, gone, almost forgotten.
Right.
And
somewhere her voice is still carrying on radio waves, reaching the
Alpha Centauri. Do you think it's better to be remembered as is it better to have a big theater career and only be remembered as the villain in Back to School, or is it better to be remembered for a big thing like being Axis Sally and you were like the star of the thing?
I think if you believed it, it's probably better to be Axis Sally. Like, but if she was just like, hey, I was just doing what they told me, and she was just kind of an opportunist, I don't know. I'd rather be, Blair's dad or the or Chef, obviously. But but yeah, I mean, not that I'm supporting. I'm saying she should have believed in Nazi propaganda, but I'm saying if
it's almost worse that she doesn't believe it. If she doesn't,
exactly.
Believe
Like
it.
if through some twisted, logic, you can actually find yourself believing in that, and you're enthusiastic about it, and you devote your life to it. But if you're just doing it as an opportunist and as a kind of, if you're a fair weather human, then no, not at all.
Yeah, I mean, say what you will about the tenets of National Socialism. At least it's an ethos.
Right, exactly. Well, on that note, sad to see these people. Well, for the most part, sad to see these people go. Right? I don't know, mixed feelings about. But
we're mostly sad.
Definitely notable. Mm-hmm. Definitely something to think about. Quick note that hey, if you like, we covered 3 character actors, people who are in a lot of things, and you might have seen their faces, but might not know who they are. If you like that kind of a thing, keep an eye out on our Star Wars Minute YouTube channel, because we've got an upcoming recurring video series highlighting some of the people who are in Star Wars and in some other stuff. If you like this show, let us know. If there's anybody that we missed that you want to spotlight, feel free to comment below and shine a light on somebody. Obviously, a couple of people had mentioned that they thought we would be talking about the submarine crew this week, but it's not really people who are notable to us, and there's not much to that story that hasn't been covered in the media over the last couple of weeks.
Nothing we can add to it, really.
Yeah, nothing to add other than those people died. And more people will die, presumably. Fingers crossed that they don't. But more people are probably going to die in the next week. So we'll probably be back next week with another episode of Who Died with Pete and Alex.
Paxton Whitehead. 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 Mr. Whitehead. Paxton.